I have a tendency to get places a little sooner than maybe I should.
Yeah,
Right?
but it's all good. It's all good. You're there nonetheless,
Right,
right? It may be a little sooner for others, but you're there.
right.
Welcome to Four Thoughts of Our Founders, the podcast for the Higher Education Leadership Foundation. I am Herman Felton, excited and crunk with a capital K today because we have a really special guest who understands what that capital K is really about. Don't shimmy on him today, brother, but really excited to have President Michael J. Sorrell, president of Paul Quin College here today. What's going on, Noob?
Brother, it's always good to be in your presence. Thank you
Man,
for having me on the podcast.
man, thank you for being here. I know you got a lot going on. You're always out there nation building 2.0ing and all that good stuff. So I'm happy that we got a chance to catch you at a good time where we're able to really do one thing, and that's really to learn what nation building really is. Actually, a couple things, but the genesis is what is nation building and how did that transformation occur? But before we do that, man, I want to open it up. How's your family? How's everybody doing? You know, we haven't seen each other in person for about
Yeah,
what,
man.
6, 7 months,
It's been a
something
minute.
like that. It's been a minute. How's everything going in your neck of the woods, brother?
Man, everybody's good. The blessing of this crisis has been the time it's afforded me to spend with my family.
Yeah.
And I got to a family later, right? I mean, my son was born when I was 42, 42, 43, something like that. And
Hmm.
um, it's just being a dad is the best thing ever,
It's dope.
right?
That
And
that actually is the greatest fraternity known to man.
it really is.
Yeah.
So my son and I, it's Adventures in Man Camp. We've been at it from day one.
Yeah.
And then my wife and I, we didn't think we were going to have any more kids. And then we got blessed with my daughter. And she's 5. And she's independent. She's strong. But she had been all mommy all the time
Hmm.
because we hadn't really had a chance to
To
just
bond.
bond. And
Yeah.
so what this has done is afforded me the chance to spend time with my baby girl
Hmm.
and to do lots of daddy daughter stuff. And
Yeah.
if if this was all that I got out of this experience, it has been a gift. So they are wonderful. Just just the best part of me. How's your family doing?
All is well, man. I feel the same way, bro. I think this gave us all a chance, especially those of us who spend time in the air and in different hotels and cities quite often while we're doing the work of our institutions. I mean, it gave us a chance to slow down and reconnect. And everything is great. I've came to the conclusion that I am not smarter than my 7 year old. He's made it abundantly clear. I'm sure, I catch a glimpse every now and then of your daughter on social media, so I know you might be in the same boat. I got you beat because she's 5, and you're probably struggling with a 5 year old. So
Like she's on a whole nother level.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
She's got that gear, and I'm looking
yeah,
at her. She'll hit me with the daddy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
My bad.
Silly mortal, silly mortal. I've been called by my son at times. So, but all is well, man. And I want to say this as we transition. I think one takeaway. I know people have been impacted on different levels and different grades of the scale, and I think one thing that all of us hopefully do on the other side of this is come out as better people, better human beings, because of the time, the point of reflection, all those good things, man. We should certainly, even if it has been tough for you, I hope that folk have, spent time with self and examined who they are and hopefully like themselves a lot more coming out of this thing, man.
I think that I would hope so. Otherwise, they have wasted a an opportunity that quite frankly, I hope we never get again. Right?
Absolutely. Not in our lifetime,
No, I
anyway.
don't. We don't need to go there. But
Yeah.
it is to your point, man. It's just it's a blessing to be able to spend time with your thoughts,
Yeah.
with your company, and to slow down. And even if you didn't want to slow down, the extended nature of this experience
Hmm.
should have forced you
Yeah.
to slow down.
No doubt.
And that's my grandfather used to tell me, he said, "Son, when you don't know what to do, be still."
Mm,
Right? And this is a be still moment.
absolutely.
I am forever grateful.
Yeah. So you're on the board at Paul Quinn, and a president is has departed, and you folk are looking around trying to figure out who's the next one. Esther comes to mind, and I'm sure that that's funny to you on a whole different level because of her assertion or her declaration, and you had a brush with that. So
Right.
yeah, so you're on the board, and the position opens up. How did you, this powerhouse attorney in Dallas with everything but running an institution going on in your mind and your life, um, how did that happen? How did you get into the seat, brother?
Oh man, well listen, to really understand that, you have to understand how I even wound up on the board, right? Because I wound up on the board the last prior to myself, the last what I would call stable presidency that the college had.
Hmm.
That president decided, it was Lee Monroe, that he was going to retire.
Yeah.
And I read about it in the paper. And I'm 34, 35 years old at the time, don't know anything about higher ed other than having gone to higher ed and all this stuff. And I decide, I'm like, I should be the next president, right? So I call up the search firm. I'm like, hey, Michael Sorrell, I think I should be the next president, Paul Quinn.
Don't y'all know me?
Yeah, what's up, right? Like the search firm, the lady who was running the search was sort of like, young brother, that's not really how this works, right? Like, and by the way, who are you? Okay,
Yeah.
do you have
There
any
you
experience? I was like, no, do you think I need experience? Right? Like, I mean,
go.
just
I mean, it's be a president. Anybody can do it. I woke up.
and I what attracted me to Paul Quinn was when I moved to Dallas. I was recruited here by a large law firm, and they were wonderful to me. But the people that made Dallas home
Hmm.
were a set of Paul Quinn alums that I met playing basketball. Right, like there was a at the downtown YMCA in Dallas on
Hmm.
Saturday mornings. There were basketball games where former college players would all get together and play. And Paul Quinn had gone through a period where they won two national championships, right?
Yeah.
So these guys had played there, and some of them were our fraternity brothers as well.
Hmm.
And man, they would invite me to the cookouts. They would introduce me to their friends, right?
Hmm.
And like I'm a big brother. If you invite me to the cookout, that's saying something because I'm
Right.
coming for your food,
Food.
right?
A lot
So
of it too,
a
right?
lot of it, right? And so, but they made it home. And I'm one of those people, if you're ever good to me or the things I care about, man, I will always look out. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those guys that's gonna wave a banner and say I looked out, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will always do that.
Look
So
out.
I gave money to the school. I, would come pour my time, do things, come speak to the students. One semester I even wound up teaching a class for a teacher who got sick, right?
Mm.
And so I just felt very connected to the school. And also, everyone in my family, with the exception of myself and one of my first cousins who went to college, went to an HBCU.
Okay.
And so I'm always attracted to that space because
Hmm.
there's something in it because of my family that calls to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what made me think, oh, I should be president. So I go, and the lady's like, okay, beat it. Um, she then does some research, realizes, okay, maybe this is somebody I should take seriously.
Hmm.
She calls me back. We sit down, we talk. She's like, I really like you. I'm going to send you to go talk to the chair of the board, who's the bishop in the church. So she sends me to the bishop, who's the bishop of the 10th district at that time.
Hmm.
and we don't really hit it off, right? And part of it is because I'm very irreverent,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm production over protocol. I'm just kinetic energy, and the
Not the
bishops are
connectional church.
right. They are very like there's a reason why it's called the Methodist Church. It is
Church.
methodical, right?
That's
It's
right.
structure.
That's
It is
right.
order. And he was just like, "What makes you think you can be president?" And I was kind of like, "Hey, man, listen, this isn't Harvard,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't need an academician.
Yeah.
You need a businessman. You need a salesman. You need someone that will love your students, right?" I was like, don't you cannot hire me, but don't make the mistake of hiring the wrong kind of president.
Yeah.
But we didn't vibe, right? So he sent me on my way, and I was mad. So I stayed up half the night and wrote out this whole thing, like the plan for excellence, blueprint for excellence, the plan for Paul Quin College. Sent it to the search firm. Search firm then sent it to the chair. The chair then calls me back. He's like, "Listen," he said, "You're too much. You're too aggressive. You're too much." He said, "So, and you have no experience." Right?
None.
He said, which was absolutely right, right? Like
Yeah.
I had no experience.
And you were aggressive, right?
And I was aggressive, right? And he said, "Why don't we put you on the board and you can get experience? And then when one of our other schools comes open, you can be a candidate for that." And I was sort of like, I'm not really here for the consolation prize, right? So, I go home and I had like a mentor at the time.
Hmm.
And he says to me, he said, "Look, first of all, that'd be a really hard school to be president of. So I don't know why you'd want to do that." He said, "But don't let your ego lose sight of the fact to be on a board of a college at 34, 35 years old is
Big deal.
nothing to sneeze at."
That's right.
And so, I went back and I checked my ego and I joined the board. But it's really hard to be on a board of something when you think you should have the job of the president, right?
Mhm.
And I would sit in board meetings and I would listen to decisions that were being made and I look around and I wasn't there for it. And so the president that we hired was there for 2, 3 years, and we started hiring interims and things like that. And with each interim, I would sit there like, is no one gonna give me a shot? Are we just really gonna act like
I'm not here.
I'm not here? Like I can't be the president? Like so I'm watching interim, 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 permanent, and I'm just like, all right. I said, this is clearly not meant for me. The
Mhm.
Lord has not meant this for me. And I had started my own business at the time. And one of the things that we were doing was we were part of a group trying to buy the Memphis Grizzlies.
Mhm.
And if we had succeeded, I would have had a really, really small ownership stake and would have been president of the franchise.
But
So,
an ownership stake nonetheless.
yeah, right. Because, even if you got 1%,
That's a lot.
your kids are going to be all right. College is
For a long
coming.
time. Right.
Right?
That's right.
College is coming. So, I am moving into what I like to call the Range Rover phase of my life. Right. And I literally type up my letter of resignation from the board and I go to fax it because this was, back in 2006, I think. My
Mhm.
fax machine is malfunctioning and I just set it on my desk. I'm like, I'll
Yeah.
get to it later. In the interim, I get a phone call from Boston Consulting Group, who were doing a pro bono project evaluating the school. And, they called me up to like, we want to interview you. I was like, I'm not, you don't want to interview me. I said, because
I'm not the person.
I'm going to tell you the truth, and nobody wants to hear the truth. They said, "No, we've been told that you are going to speak your mind." And so we meet, we have breakfast for like 3 hours. And at the end of it, I'm like, "All right, you all get it." I said, "But no one's going to ever listen to you." And they said, "Well, they'll have to listen to us. Otherwise, I'll have to close the school in a year to 2 years." And I was like, that might get them to listen.
Mm.
So they turn in the report. The guy who's president literally like leaves in the middle of the, between the middle of the night, right? And I am I'm driving down the highway. We have a new chair of the board. I'm
Mhm.
driving down the highway to scout Kevin Durant in the Big 12 tournament in Oklahoma City because, in my mind, I'm headed to
It's
Memphis.
gonna happen. Right.
And I get a call from the new chair of the board who says, "How would you like to be president?" And I was just like, I'm about to be president
Yeah.
of the Memphis Grizzlies, right? I was like, I don't know what you're gonna pay me.
El Presidente will be my name.
That is next in my future, right? I said, I don't know what you're gonna pay me, but
Yeah,
they're gonna pay me more.
that's right.
And he was just like, well, he said, you can do both. And I was like, man, you can't do both. I can't be president of Paul Quin in Dallas and president of the Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis. And I was like, by the way, you are a bishop in the church. You can't lie, right? Like, what is this, right? And but he was, who he was thinking about was
Floyd Flake.
Floyd Flake up in
Yeah.
Wilberforce, right? Like
Yeah.
that was the model that he was proposing.
Mm-hmm.
So I get off the phone, and I call my sister, and my sister's incredulous, right? Because she's a public school teacher.
Yeah.
She's an educator. Like she is just,
It's seeped into her.
and she is just like, what? Like, this is an outrage. You don't know anything about education. I'm the educator. She's like, stuff like this just happens for you. You're buying a basketball team, even though we both know you don't have that kind of money. She's like, she's like, now you just drive down a highway and people offer you a job to be a college president. She's like, you know who you are? I was like, I'm the new president of Paul Quin College.
That is who I am.
That's who I am. She's like, no, you're the Black Forrest Gump, right?
Wow.
She's like, stuff just happens to you. And, man, like people always talk about this, but what I know is I was the last choice, right? And I know I was the last choice because I was on the board. So I saw everybody trying to get before, right? And it was, because you have to be the last choice to turn to someone with no experience that, to hand your failing institution over to. And for me, probably the greatest gift that experience could have ever given me was the gift of humility.
Yeah.
Right? Because whoever I thought I was, whatever I thought I had accomplished, I was the last choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, there were a whole bunch of people that no matter, I may have thought I was better than no one else, like they didn't think I was better.
Right. The collective did not.
The collective did not think that I was better. And there's a maturity that comes from a humbling process that grounds you. And, and I would tell you, I'm so thankful for that because now, like all the successes that we're having and that we've had, like I don't, like they roll off my back.
Yeah.
I don't, like I appreciate them. I am thankful for them. But I understand that it's not about me, right? It's about we. It's our whole we over me. All the stuff that we're known for, because I spent a season being humble, has made an enormous difference.
I remember being a Marine recruit in Parris Island, South Carolina, and a drill instructor, Sergeant Pitts. Dude was dark. He was dark, but just powerful. And he said this back in August of '89: deprivation creates starvation. And I think when that popped into my mind when you said that, because I'm always able to remember what it felt like when I thought I was at the top and I was the only person that felt like that. And you can wear that forever. And I think that period, I think it's actually a good piece of medicine that all of us should experience, a large dose of humility. And often, to be honest with you, every now and again, I think it's necessary. So that made me, that deprivation creating starvation. It is what, that one nice attaboy, it rose because you're looking for the next attaboy, not from a perspective of you, as you said, but the more good you do, the more people benefit from the good that you do.
That's right. And it is just like I am thankful for it, right? I'm thankful for the perspective
Mm.
that it gave me. It gives me the ability to laugh at myself. It gives
Yeah.
me the ability to like rejoice in the accomplishments of others. It gives me
Hmm.
the ability not to spend my time comparing myself to anyone else. Right? Like it's it's a gift that I am forever grateful for.
Yeah. So you got what you wanted. You got the presidency,
I got
and
it.
you sat in that seat for the first time. What was the thought that you had to the first time you were alone by yourself after you sat in the seat, and then what I think would be a liminal moment when you realize what the lift was going to be? What were those two thoughts?
So I realized the lift. So the appreciation of the lift was a a process.
A continuum.
It was a continuum over years. Okay, so the first was when I come on the campus the first day, March 27th, 2007, as the president. And before I go to my office, I go visit the men's dorm. And I walk into the men's dorm, there are holes in the wall, stuff looks dreary. People are sleeping, when they should be in class, right? Like, I mean, the whole thing was just, there were 15 abandoned buildings on the campus. It's just, and that afternoon, I have to preside over and, disciplinary appeals hearings for students who got into a campus altercation and pulled knives and guns on each
Hmm.
other. And these guys show up in wrinkled clothes, looking like they had just woken up and clearly not taking the situation seriously.
Hmm.
I'm reading their personal statements. They're horribly written. It's just, and I remember stopping them, saying to them, "I'm sorry." I was like, because we have failed you. If we have made you think that you are what a junior in college is, we have failed you. I was like, I wasn't here for the failing, but I'm going to be here for the fixing.
Mm.
And it starts now. And
Yeah.
but then it was, when I realized the magnitude of the challenge with Sachs. And look, man, full disclosure, we didn't talk about accreditation at Duke.
Right.
We didn't talk about accreditation at Oakland. I didn't even like, it was like accreditation,
Yeah.
you know. And it just kept getting worse.
Hmm.
And I I just remember wondering, how could we ever fix this?
Yeah.
Right? Feeling confident that we would,
Hmm.
but
But not knowing
just
how.
knowing how and looking at it and realizing that this was about as different than the places I went to school
Hmm.
as anything could be. And so I realized, like, I don't even have a network that could begin to help me make sense of this.
Hmm.
And one of the things, and you and I have talked about this, man, one of the things people don't know about back then was like the HBCU presidents weren't always very welcoming,
No.
right? Like there was,
No.
and I was young. I didn't come from the academy. I didn't come from our wing of the academy.
Yeah.
Um, and folks weren't cheering for me. Right. I mean, there was some that were like willing to be helpful a little bit. And
Yeah.
so I just had to really build my way. Like I didn't even know enough.
So say that again, though, like because I don't think people appreciate what they see now.
Yeah.
It's a normalcy, what they believe to be a normalcy, and I was, a chair removed from the presidency, watching how the sage in the building responded to each other, and so I think it's really even more remarkable the lift that you had because you were an outsider, quote unquote, and didn't have the luxury of having a cadre of folk around you that even from in the space, even though they couldn't help you that much, but just knowing that they were on the same team, that would have been powerful. So
Yeah.
I, I
And it,
just want to emulate.
Herman, like it like I've never told people this, but like it broke my heart. Right. Like I grew up revering HBCUs. everything that I am in my life is because HBCUs got it right for my mother, right? Because my dad didn't go to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
He grew up a single parent home in New Orleans. My mother and father built a thriving restaurant business through his charm and my mother's will, right? Like, and she was the educated one. She was the one that pushed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I may have romanticized the HBCU space, right? Like I thought it was special, right? And
Yeah.
I still do. Right? It is special,
Yeah,
but
no doubt,
com-
no doubt.
coming into it, I thought I was like, oh, I'm gonna be part of the club, right? Like
Yes.
the Benjamin Mays, the Booker T.
Welcome.
Washington,
Yeah.
Charles, like because I read about these brothers. Like what people don't understand is like I have this deep reverence for the history of our institutions, and
Which we all should.
which we all
All
should. Like
should.
my shelves are full of books on HBCUs. Like I have visited so many of our schools,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I go visit them, and people don't know who I am, right? Like I
That's
just
the best part, right?
yeah, I don't go like celebrate me. Like I'm just trying to learn. And when I got there, and a lot of people did me wrong,
Mm.
right? I mean, like I was in a meeting when we were part of UNCF before we got voted out. Folks, like there was a president who sat there and told me in my face that my school should have never hired me, right? And I'm like, what did I do to you, right? And so it what I learned to do in those moments was look for the ally in a hostile room
Yeah.
and to recognize the ally. Because, see, sometimes we expect allies to take bullets for us that they can't take.
That's right.
Right? So we don't know that they're our allies, right? Because we don't know what an ally really looks like. Sometimes your ally is the brother who comes after you after you've been shot,
Mm-hmm.
who says, here's the road to the hospital. I will meet you there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Doesn't mean that he's going to jump in front and take the bullet for you,
Right.
right? But he's going to let you take because you got to take that bullet, but he's going to help make sure you survive and learn the lesson of the bullet. And some of the people who did that for me, like Wesley McClure, who was a
Yeah.
lion, right? God rest his soul.
Yeah.
That brother, like he schooled me to the game.
He was a giant, man.
Oh man, listen, I get a little sensitive when people want to talk badly about
About.
HBCU presidents. When
Mhm.
I'm like, there are some of them that have been extraordinary, but because they did it in out of the way places that didn't have the benefit of media markets, that
Yeah.
didn't have the benefit of social media, that didn't know how
Yeah.
to tell the story,
Yeah.
have been lost to history. But
Yeah.
Wesley McClure let me come hang out in his campus in Jackson, Tennessee, and spent hours with me, teaching me, right? Like teaching me.
Listen,
And
I Jimmy Jenkins, because I was with him, I got a chance to meet all of those dudes and those ladies. And I don't know if you remember this, but 2007, that meeting was the first time I met you, and I was sitting proxy for Dr. Jenkins.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I walked out and told you who did what. I didn't care if I was a snitch. We call it what you. It was astonishing to me to listen to people around the table after they had asked you to walk outside and take the vote. It was fascinating to me. Now, we talk about being a member institution group type situation and family. And if the wolves are outside the barn, why are we letting one of our members outside of the barn to fend for themselves? That just didn't make any sense. After all, the middle 60s was when Sachs let us in, and now they're the gold standard to determine whether or not the framers of UNCF did not care squat about accreditation when he thought of I need to build a space for our schools.
Yeah,
That wasn't a part of the criteria.
yeah,
So At that point, I was conditioned to keep my head on the swivel if God ever placed me in that.
Right, right, right,
I was
right.
conditioned. Yeah.
I mean, Herman, it was like to understand how it went, right? To have a meeting time changed where people are going to discuss your faith and no one tell you, and you are in the place. You show up early for the time that the meeting's supposed to take place. People are like, oh, we changed the meeting time.
Yeah.
Right? Like to have seen it all play out. And you know, I'm, listen, man, don't don't let the glasses and the proper grammar and the private schools fool you, right? Like I will come for you. And and I'm sitting there and this is why I love, Brother McClure, because he tapped me
Yeah.
and he said, mm-mm, mm-mm. And then, kind of help me process it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why today I am so committed to everyone's success, right? Like, and
Hmm.
this, like, if somebody asks me for any help, they're gonna get it.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not gonna force my like, I'm not that guy. I'm not gonna call it and be like, listen, you need me, right? Like, but
Yeah.
I will help all of us, right? Like I don't think about things from a let me promote Paul Quinn into I am here for all of us
Hmm.
because I know what it was like to struggle.
Yeah. So you have found yourself to the president's office. You know where that is. You're around the campus. You've taken an assessment, and you realize that accreditation is coming up, and then you need to be able to respond to that. Let's talk about that process because I think that was probably one of the earlier battles
Yeah,
that you had to fight, which really started Nation Building 2.0. I think that
it
was the
did.
catalyst.
It did. Well, listen, we're gonna be honest, man. I didn't know anything about accreditation,
Hmm.
like nothing.
Yeah.
I barely knew what SACS was. Um, that I didn't know the hole we were in. I didn't because that hadn't been disclosed. Right, that
At the
had
board meetings.
at the board meeting. Like that hadn't been fully disclosed at the board. Like it turns out that I discovered that there was a whole lot of things that the board didn't know. Right. So man, um, like I didn't know. I started to appreciate the hole we were in when we were submitting a report and the librarian calls me up. She says, "You have to come see this. They want to turn in exhibits on spiral notepad paper that were written in pencil."
Mm.
And I'm sort of like, "What are you talking about? Like, what? Like, I didn't because I thought that I could depend on people to do what they had been hired to do. I've talked about this. Like, we learned that lesson. Right? Everybody who's in the chair should not be in the seat.
Absolutely.
And so I when we do that and then we are put on probation, I realized that I'm gonna have to teach myself this. And so I got all the binders, right? Like the rules of SAC. And I like when my workday was over, I would sit at my desk and I read it all. Right. Like I mean Herman, I read all of it. I taught myself accreditation.
Hmm.
And which gave me a unique understanding of the magnitude of the hole that we were in,
Yeah.
right? And I realized, like, we can't win on institutional effectiveness, right? There's data that we need to have that we don't have. Now we can do everything else, like
Hmm.
we did from the time I got there and understood the whole forward.
Yeah.
We did everything we were supposed to do, but I couldn't do anything about what was behind us. I
Hmm.
could fix, I could fix finances. I
Yeah.
could we did all that stuff, but we were never going to win.
Yeah.
So we had to adopt sort of this long game approach,
Hmm.
even in that moment. And that began, we started to look at this from a strategic standpoint. Because once you realize, like one of the things I think people should do is decide what a win is.
Hmm.
And sometimes
Define it themselves.
define it themselves. Because
Hmm.
sometimes what is a reasonable win, man, it's not it, it's not how everyone else would define a win.
That's right.
We
That's
just had
right.
to stay on our feet, right?
Hmm.
We had to stay on our feet, stay open, and give me an opportunity to keep building momentum.
Yeah.
And then give me a story that I could tell.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done. But you know, you also will benefit from people's hearts changing.
Hmm.
Like an example I'll give you is your predecessor, Dr. Strickland, right?
Hmm.
Like Strick taught me a lot as well, right? Like there was something in what we were doing, I think, that appealed to him because he was a guy who saved Texas College. So I think Strick on some level looked at it and said, "Man, I remember
That time.
that time,
Hmm.
and I'm I'm not and if you pledged, you understand this, right? You always like they're the big brothers. Everybody's pledging,
Hmm.
right? But there's that brother over there,
Just one.
just one, that's like, I gotta be in the set,
Yeah. But I'm gonna
but
do it differently.
I'm gonna do it differently,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna do it differently. And I never forgot that, man. And I've always appreciated
What benefit do you think that legal education lended you coming into the space? While you didn't have the 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 theoretical
that. Yeah.
perspective of running an institution, I think there's something really special about that legal education, man.
Yeah.
That allowed you even to when I'm listening to you talking about the long game, inherent in that legal education and you understanding the assessment piece. I saw your mind moving as a jurist, thinking from a legal perspective, not from a technical perspective. Like,
Yeah.
what can I get them? Where if I had to fight them in court, on what basis would I have an argument? Where would I win? Talk about that legal education, man, and how beneficial that was for you.
So the first benefit that the legal education gave me was it made me fearless
Mm.
from this standpoint. I read the rules.
Hmm.
I read the requirements, right? So I had the self confidence to know that I can read this and figure this out for myself.
Yeah.
I don't have to depend on anyone else. And in reading it, I read it from the perspective, where can I win?
Yeah.
Where can we win? Where is the lane that we can successfully maneuver
Hmm.
into? And once we found it, then it was how to exploit it.
Yeah.
And once we found it, I forgot how to exploit. Then it was now it's about telling the story,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and the telling the story is a powerful tool.
Um, Before we continue, I have a question from Dr. Sam Hinton. He wanted to know, in your early years as a president, how challenging did you find yourself as president and the board of trustees seeing each other's as teammates and not opposing players?
Sure. And tell Brother Hinton I said what's going on.
Yeah, he's
Um,
out there viewing us.
yeah. And let me do this apologize because I've got a 1 o'clock.
Okay,
So I think if you're cool with it, this can be part one, and then we
absolutely,
schedule part two.
absolutely.
Um, so here's what I would tell you. It helped that I came from the board, right? Like that helped. But even then, there is a psychology of suffering that struggling institutions and organizations have.
Yeah,
And when you're accustomed to that, it takes a minute to reverse that, even when you know the people doing it. But I have always understood my job to be a big part of my job to be this. I need to make my trustees look great,
Mm,
right? Like I need to give them pride points. And so, I function in a space where for my trustees, for my students, for my staff, for my alums, I'm trying to give people so many pride points that folks don't know what to do.
yeah,
That because when people feel good, when they are happy, they let you do what you've
pretty
come
much.
to do.
Yeah.
And so I just and then I would go around to the different things that the church would do, and I would listen to what made the church community happy.
Hmm.
And some of it was how you could tell your story.
Yeah.
But you needed to have a story to tell. It's like this old Peggy Noonan quote. They asked her what made Ronald Reagan a great speaker, and she said, "I don't know if he was a great speaker, but he had great things to say." And so my experience is, she said, when you have something great to say, it tends to make you a much better speaker.
Yeah.
And so, but that's only partially true with church communities, right?
Yeah.
You need to,
I think the whole truth.
you gotta tell it,
You need to
right?
be
Like
able to tell a story, especially with the connectional.
you gotta be able to give it to them,
Yeah.
right? And so we've tried to do that, and the board has been my boards have been the perfect boards for entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
right? In that they know they need to give me a little leeway to let the thing take shape,
Yeah.
right? And that works really well for me because sometimes I come to you and I'll just tell you, man, it's a feeling,
Yeah.
and you got to ride the feeling out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you got to give me the space, and they're like, you've earned the
The
right to
trust
do
is
that.
there. That's
Yeah.
right. The trust is there. Well, we're going to wrap up this part one of two parts, might even be three.
Right, the rate we're going.
The rate we're going, but it's such a rich story, and I mean, how prophetic to end on, having something really good to say and being able to say it in a really nice way. This has been the first of a couple series of podcasts with the president of Paul Quin College, President Michael Sorrell. It's been great chatting with you, and look forward to the second piece, my brother.
Absolutely, man. Always good to see you.
Likewise, man. Likewise. You take care of yourself, brother.
You too.
Be good, man.